What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to D&CGaming Legion. My name is Chris.
And my name is Dan.
And in today's video, we're talking about, well, pretty much everything the Destiny 2 beta does wrong.
Yeah, there's quite a lot that they did wrong, but there's also a few good things, but honestly, the good doesn't outweigh the bad. So we're here to break down everything in the beta that they did right, everything that they did wrong, and hopefully everything that needs to be fixed when the full game comes out.
Alright, so yeah, let's get right into it.
Okay, so we'll start off with the positives.
Ah, boy, here we go.
First positive thing that they added is the ability to be able to peek over cover when you're crouching behind it. This is a good addition to the game, I feel, because it makes it feel a little more realistic. Second thing they added that's pretty good is the ability to climb up on platforms. If you're like just short of the jump but your hands are in reach, you can grab onto the platform and climb up. So no more of those missed falls if you take a jump too short.
Alright, another positive change they made was now there's different weapon types, such as miniguns, submachine guns, they have grenade launchers, and these are really cool because it just adds more variety to the weapons that you get to use in the game. What they also did was they made it where now your weapon slots are a little different. In the last game it was just like primary, secondary, and like power or something like that. In this game now it's essentially you have kinetic, energy, and power. So kinetic is pretty much like normal bullet damage, more or less. Energy is like if the gun has like an element type to it, and power is like if it's a really strong weapon, like, you know, a sniper rifle or say a rocket launcher, for instance. So they made it where like there's more flexibility with how you can like the weapons you want to have equipped on your character. It's less limited, which is a positive change.
So from the very limited gameplay that we actually get to see of the story, the new game has some pretty good cutscenes. The graphics are great, you know, the sound quality is good, the special effects are great. Not much of an improvement from the last game, but it's a noticeable improvement nonetheless, so I guess you could say that's positive. Another positive they added is the ability to dye individual pieces of armor as opposed to your entire armor set, and also you can apply dyes to your weapons now. So that's new, interesting, it's way better than the last game, but there are some flaws to that which we'll cover later.
Alright, so one thing I do like that is a improvement to the gameplay is they made it where now every single class has like a new extra ability that they can activate by holding down the crouch button, which if you're on the Xbox that'd be the B button. So essentially, for example, the Titan can create this little barrier in front of him that he can use for cover. Another example would be the Warlock has this little healing field that can heal him and his allies. So this ability you activate has like its own separate cooldown from your ultimate and the other abilities that you have. So it's a pretty nice addition because it just adds more like strategy to the gameplay and whatnot, which is a good thing.
Okay, so probably the biggest new thing that they've added is the new subclasses for each class. The Titan gets a Captain America style shield that he can throw once or twice if you have an upgrade, which you can't get in the beta. That's kind of a letdown because I was hoping you'd be able to throw it, you know, more than that, just so you can keep throwing it as a ranged ability. But he can also use it as a shield with blocking abilities, and he can also just bash into people with it, so it's pretty versatile. It works. Then we have the Warlock, who has a sword ability and gets these like flaming dragon wings and can hover around the battlefield just launching solar blasts at people. It's neat, but I find that it's kind of hard to use, mostly because the blasts don't travel in a straight line, they travel in kind of an arc. So it's a little hard to hit people if they're far away. Finally, we have the Hunter, who has the Arc Strider ability. More or less, this is kind of just a remake of the Blade Dancer from the last game. As opposed to having a knife, you have a staff. So it's cool, but at the same time, I feel like they got lazy with this one. Instead of creating something brand new, they just gave us a different weapon with the same basic ultimate. One thing I forgot to mention is that the Captain America Titan Shield ability doubles as a secondary function. If you hold LB and RB, or whatever trigger is activated, depending on what console you're playing on, if you hold that, it creates the Ward of Dawn shield instead of the shield that you can move around with. So that's useful. It's kind of two ultimates for the price of one.
Alright, so now we're talking about the Crucible really quickly. One thing they added that is new to the Crucible is a new game mode called Countdown, which more or less is very similar to the game mode Search and Destroy from previous Call of Duty games, where essentially there's two objectives and one team is attacking them and the other team is defending them. So what you have to do is if you're on the attacking side, is you have to go to the objective and arm the bomb and then detonate it. or you have to eliminate all the enemy players on the enemy team. And if you're on the defending side, you have to disarm the bomb, or eliminate all the enemy defenders on the enemy team. This game mode, once you die, you don't respawn. You can be revived, however, there's a long period of time that has to expire before that can happen. From what we've played, it's a pretty cool game mode, but it does demand that you have to use teamwork much more than, say, the other game modes. But it is pretty cool. And I do appreciate that they're trying to add some more variety to the Crucible. Alright, now next I want to talk about is the new strike mission, which is pretty cool. Essentially, it takes place on one of the new planets. I don't recall the name off the top of my head, but it's a pretty big planet, at least from what we've seen of it. We could explore a little bit of it, but there really wasn't anything to see other than just to, complete the objective and do the actual strike itself. Pretty much the mission consists of just fighting some Cabal and some Vex, and that was really it. There was some platforming parts where we got to do these like jump pads that like sent you flying through, so that was pretty cool. It was a big like barren wasteland that had like a bunch of craters and was pretty huge and wide, so it was good for sniping. And there's also this one part where there's this big like drill that was like in the ground that was, you had to like watch out for the blades that were spinning like and coming at you, so that was pretty cool. You had to like dodge that. And then the boss battle itself was not bad either. It was pretty much this giant robot Vex enemy that had 3 different phases to him. The first phase, he's I think he was glowing purple if I'm not mistaken, and essentially he shoots enemy stuff like she shoots projectiles at you. Enemies come in. It's kind of the same thing as what you'd expect all the other strike bosses in the previous games to be. But when you do enough damage to him, the floor disappears and you move on to a different area where you have to fight him again, but this time he's glowing a different color. Things are a little different. Like now he makes the floor erupt in fire, and you have to avoid it, which is pretty cool. And then once again, the floor disappears again. You go to a last final area to fight him, and you're surrounded by like a acid water that if you go in, you die. And again, he changes color, so I'm guessing his weakness is different every single time. So it was a pretty cool strike. It's not mind-blowing, but I guess it's a step in the right direction, but it's at the end of the day, it's kind of the same thing as to what you would expect, so I guess that's positive, but could also be viewed as negative. But yeah, on to the next thing.
Alright, so the last positive we have for this game is the villain, whose name is
John Cena!
Yeah, whose name is Gol, for the record. He looks menacing, and he kind of looks like a Sith Lord, honestly. A really fat Sith Lord, but yeah, he's not really. I don't know. What do you want to say about him?
I want to say he has potential to be a good villain because they showed him right away in the beginning of the game, which is a good thing. So you see who he is, you see what he's already accomplished, and like what little screen time he's had in the game. The question is just how much more like screen time and how much more development is this guy gonna get? Because he has potential, because he's got a cool voice, he's got a cool design, so on, but could he just be one of those guys that just has a cool design voice and then that's it? You don't see him again to the end of the game and that's it? That would be a little disappointing, so.
Yeah, I mean, because with Destiny, the storytelling was never great, which they've said they're working on, but again, we still don't know what the darkness is. They already said they're not telling us until the 3rd game, which, holy shit, why the fuck not? But, I mean, it's a step in the right direction, because at least we now know somewhat of who we're actually fighting, who the villain is, you know?
Yeah, so I just hope that it gets better as opposed to worse, but yeah.
We'll just have to wait and see. Now, on to the negatives of Destiny 2.
I don't like where this is going.
Alright, so now it's time to talk about the negatives of the beta. Now, this is where it gets real. Alright, so, in my opinion, this beta, at the most, is a 3 out of 5. Now, my reasoning for that is because the whole purpose of a beta is to not only test the game for bugs, but it's also to get the player, like, play the game and get interested in what they're going to play, and then, purchase the full game. Unfortunately, this beta lacks a lot of things and doesn't really show much improvement, and that's what's kind of like turning me off, considering how this is the 2nd game. You'd think they'd be not afraid to show all the improvement. Which brings us to the first flaw, is in the beta, there is no character customization, period. Now, in the full game, there probably will be character customization, considering the last Destiny had it, But you'd think that in the beta they wouldn't be afraid to show off the improvements to, say, the character customization, if there is any. I have a feeling they probably haven't improved it at all, and they're hiding it in the beta. That way you can't see it, and you can just only hope that it's improved. So that's a big letdown, because character customization is a big thing in a game like this, and especially if you're supposed to, be your own guardian. So that's a serious problem right off the bat.
Okay, so the next problem with the beta is that there's no hub world to, walk around and explore, interact with other characters. You literally only have the story that you can only play once per character, so that's 3 times unless you delete a character and play it again. You have the Strike to walk around in, and you have the Crucible, which nobody's really going to be walking around and interacting there. They're just going to be blowing each other's brains out. So that's a big problem, because the first Destiny beta had the hub world. They had the tower. You could walk around, you could explore, you could look for secrets or lore, so to speak, if there is any. You could interact with other characters, see what, the social space looks like. In the beta for this game, there is none. So I don't know if they're not done with it yet or what their reasoning is behind it, but I feel like it should be there, because there's not a lot to do in this beta as is, and, it would help give you a little bit more to do for, maybe an hour, even.
Yeah, and to add to that, what he just said about how there is no hub world, is it also, again, doesn't show you, how much improvement they've actually made to the actual game. So you don't, get to see, what's different about this hub world in comparison to the old one. On top of that, the hub world would seem like a good area where you would be able to maybe, trade items with other players, which is something the first Destiny game lacked. And since we don't even have a hub world here to see if there's even an option to do that, it lets me to believe that they're not even going to give you the option to trade. And that, right there, is a serious problem in this type of game, alright? I mean, look, Destiny 1 had a serious RNG problem to begin with, but what would have really helped it is if you could just trade items that you got from other players. Because it really sucks when you get an item that you don't want, but another player wants it, and you can't, maybe make a trade, whatnot, of some kind. So, this beta pretty much is telling us, from what we've seen, there is no trading. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe in the final game they will have trading, but this beta is not helping me believe it. So, that's not good. Alright, so now I want to quickly talk about the characters in the story from, the brief mission we got. So there's this pretty cool cutscene that plays, and it, shows all the characters in, really good graphics, saying some lines and whatnot. The thing is, in the last Destiny game, these characters had, 0 to, very little development, pretty much. And even the ones that do kind of have, some level of development, say, Cade, even they just don't have that much going for them. I'm sure, if you read the Grimoire cards, on the online, website at Destiny, you probably would know more about these characters. But for the people like me who just play the game doesn't really provide anything for these characters. But in this cutscene that plays in the second game, in the beta, it's sort of the way they're portrayed, it's almost like we're supposed to know who they already are and what they've done, and I really don't. All I know is, for example, Zavala's the blue dude in the tower, and Cade's a robot that doesn't want to be in the tower, and that's really all I have to say. So it's just, I simply wish that these characters just simply had more development in the beta so we could understand them more. And hopefully throughout the rest of the game as well.
I just want to add to that. The fact that these characters are, in the last game, they were only in the tower, especially Cade, who constantly said whenever you talk to him, hey, get me out of this tower, take me with you, Stuff like that. It makes me wish that these characters would be more involved in the story than they actually are. And they kind of were in the first mission of the beta. Cade, you could see him going around, walking around, shooting people. Ikora blew up a spaceship. And Zavala protected you with a shield. But I feel like that's probably not going to be a big element of the game. In fact, it's probably only going to be in that mission, judging from past experiences with Bungie and how lazy they get. So, that's a big letdown because, let's be honest, wouldn't it be great to have those guys as NPCs in some of the missions just to help you out? I think that'd be pretty cool, and we're probably not going to get that. So yet another downside we gotta cover is the fact that there's probably going to be predetermined color schemes when the full game comes out. Now, we don't know this for a fact. We didn't see any colors that you could put on any of your armor or your weapons in the beta. But judging from past experiences, yet again, they're probably going to be predetermined color schemes that have 3 sets of colors that you can't change. You can only apply them. Now, it's good because you can apply them to specific pieces of armor as opposed to the entire set. But at the same time, the fact that they're predetermined is a hindrance to the full potential that it could be using, where you can just pick the color you want, as opposed to picking from a predetermined set. So that's a problem.
Yeah, to add to that, I think they actually should just use the system that Elder Scrolls Online has for its color patterns, where you have like 3 different layers of colors that you can individually pick between each one and apply to different parts of the armor. Now, that'd be a really good system they really should, take up ideas from. This next one is just downright stupid. Alright, so while playing the beta, I noticed that one of the options you could select in the options menu was for your helmet. And the only 2 options you had was helmet always on, which is the default option, and the other one was helmet off in non-combat zones. So, to summarize what this means, the only time you will ever see your character's face is when you're in a non-combat zone. And as far as I know, that essentially means only when you're in the hub world and maybe in a few select cutscenes, and that's just it. Everywhere else in the game, which would be pretty much 90% of the game of just playing and, doing missions and playing the Crucible and so on, you will never, ever, ever see your character's face, which defeats the whole purpose of even customizing it.
Oh no!
Oh no! No!
So it's just, it really bugs me how there's no point to even customizing your character's face. Why they even put that in is just stupid. I'm not going to ramble on about this any longer than it needs to be said, but the whole purpose of customizing your character is making them your own, but if you can't even see a simple thing that you made, what's the purpose of having it? Now, another big gripe I have with the first game, and in this beta as well, is I do not believe, and correct me if I'm wrong in this, but I do not believe there's dedicated servers in this game.
Oh, my favorite! Why?
Beep, beep, beep! Oh, sorry! What's that? Oh, that's just a you can't make this shit up alarm!
That is really fucking stupid. Why? Just why? Alright, think about it for a minute. This is a game that's always online. This is not a game you play offline single player mode. This is a game that you have to be online. You're playing with other players constantly. Wouldn't it make any logical sense to, always have dedicated servers so people are connecting with each other efficiently and not being lagged out? Can we just think about all the times in the first Destiny game you've been kicked out of the game because the servers are just terrible? Dedicated servers are a mandatory requirement with any game that has a heavy focus on multiplayer. And this game's all about online, so I think it doesn't get any more heavier than that. Period.
So we've had a lot of negatives so far. We've had some positives, but the biggest negative I can take away from this so far that we've seen, and has been confirmed by Bungie themselves, is you cannot take your items from Destiny 1 that you worked extremely hard for, I might add, and transfer them to Destiny 2. That means all of the rewards you ever got from a raid, all of the rewards you've ever gotten just from random RNG loot, all of the rewards you've ever gotten from doing exotic quests that take hours and hours and hours, you will not be able to get them transferred in Destiny 2. You'll have to, if they're even in the game, you'll have to find them again. And that's just fucking stupid. Really goddamn stupid.
And just to really quickly add to what he just said, if Destiny 2 is anything like the first Destiny game, it's probably going to have some serious grinding problems, which means that it's going to take forever to get all this stuff. And I would not be surprised if they were to make a Destiny 3, if everything you get in Destiny 2 is not going to carry over, and they pull that same scheme again. Alright, so one last negative thing that I just want to address really quickly is, it's not really a separate thing, but it's more so just that you look at what they did right with this beta for like all the positive things, and you just look at it and most of it is very little minor things that really aren't going to make this game that much better. So, the last negative thing I have to say about this is just lack of improvement. There's some, obviously, that we talked about, but it's just simply not enough. At least not enough to get me interested in buying the second game.
So there you have it, folks. That's everything wrong with the Destiny 2 beta. Some positives, a lot of negatives. In my opinion, the positives really don't outweigh the negatives. And to me, there's so many things that haven't been improved in this game that we haven't seen yet that probably won't be in the final product that, to me, this game does not feel like a true sequel. It doesn't feel like Destiny 2. It feels more like Destiny 1.5. like, this should have been an expansion, not a whole new game. It should have been a DLC for the first game, and it should have just stopped there. They need to really go back and take their time and with the next game and make it a lot better, because this is not doing the fans justice at all.
And if this beta is foreshadowing the future of the new game when it comes out, then I would just highly recommend you don't waste your, not even just your money, your time as well. I could tell this game is not going to be worth your $60, and honestly, if you are going to get it and play it, I guarantee you're going to end up in the same situation as the first Destiny, which essentially is you're going to be grinding endlessly, playing the same missions over and over again, and you're going to feel like you're getting nowhere and making no progress, and it's just going to boil down to being boring and repetitive. So pretty much, the way I could sum up Destiny 2 is pretty much in this clip right here.
All right, I gotta leave, okay?
John, we just started. Come on, man.
Listen, there's a lot to see in this life. Not wasting it here.
So thanks for watching, guys. Again, these are just our opinions. If you like the series, we're not going to tell you don't buy the game, but honestly, the smartest thing to do so you're getting the most bang for your buck is wait a year or two until all the expansions are out and they release like the Game of the Year edition where everything's included for $60, because honestly, that'd be a better way to spend your money if you're gonna buy the game. Otherwise, you're gonna be spending over $100 on overpriced DLC and other things that should just be in the base game from the start, and it's not a good way to spend your money. So, if you're gonna buy it, like we said, we can't tell you not to, but be smart about it.
Yeah, so support the good business practices, like, for example, The Witcher 3 and other games of that nature.
And thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe down below, hit the like button, leave us some comments, let us know your thoughts on the beta. And as always, we'll see you next time.